All right. Well, Bob, good morning, brother. How are you?
Yeah, I'm awesome, man. I'm
I,
awesome.
I appreciate you hanging out with me on a Saturday morning. Sounds like you had a productive morning. I've done the same. So here we are, man. This is the third big item on my list. Going to see the mom for Mother's Day. We're a week late,
Nice.
but we're rocking it out. So,
Yeah.
Bob, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to over the last handful of years?
Yeah. Been working on building my business as a what I'm calling now a relationship engineer.
Mm,
Uh, fancy term for life coach. I've been doing it for about 7 years now. I work primarily with hardworking, driven men that feel lost and disconnected, and empowering them with tools to support and help them engineer a life that they love. So,
mm,
and that being hopefully full of joy, meaning, and connection. Um, the way I got there, honestly, growing up, I always felt like the odd man out. I struggled to form deep connections with other guys around me. And as I progressed through um, kind of my rebirth here in the last 10 years, I made a shocking discovery about my own birth timeline that led me to realize why I had always felt that way, like that fifth wheel, odd man out kind of situation. And once I understood that and was armed with that information, it gave me a chance to rewrite my story and help me forge meaningful connections in my life, which part of why I'm doing podcasts and getting myself out there, because I knew I was playing small. I wanted to play bigger in the world and make a bigger impact, because that's what God has asked me to do. Um, and then through the guidance of, I've had multiple coaches now, starting with the first one who kind of unlocked me a little bit, and went a couple more into that where they helped me untangle those knots that I had in my past. And I've completely changed the way I live from about 10 years ago until now. And being on that journey of self discovery and healing, it's been so empowering to be able to navigate the changes with confidence and with purpose, and to be able to serve people, especially men, um, by what I call giving them hand up the ladder. I use this visualization um, because I've had men. If you envision yourself on a ladder, I have men above me that reach back and help pull me up, give me a hand up the ladder. I do the same with the other hand, reaching back for other men to help them pull up the ladder. It's not that I'm any better, or it's not that I'm any worse. It's that we're all on the same ladder. We're all trying to get to that same place, fulfill a purpose, you know, be a leader in our families, all those things. And just, again, I found very quickly when I started looking into this well, I created a men's group about 5 years ago. And when I was looking into it, women are doing this all over the place,
mm,
and men weren't doing it. We're all still got that mindset of competition. And, I did fantasy football for a long time, geeking out on that stuff, right? All through my earlier years. And because it's all about competition, right? Men are constantly wanting to be in competition. You go back to even, when we were little, we used to play baseball in the backyard. It was always about competition. Who was the best athlete? Who could hit the ball the farthest? It's competition, competition, competition. And that, not to say that competition isn't healthy, but we've lost complete touch with supporting each other, and not in a touchy-feely way, in a, I got your back kind of way.
mm.
It's funny. We did I started a group here. It's called F3. It's a nationwide. I didn't start it. It's a national organization, but it's fellowship, our fitness, fellowship, and faith. And we did.
I've heard of it.
You've
Yeah.
heard of it? It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. If you haven't had a chance to do it, I highly encourage it. But we did our workout this morning at 6:30, and I put the workout together this morning, and we did a a workout it's called Glenn Campbell's. It's to a Glenn Campbell song called "He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother."
Mm,
And you literally pick another man on your back and you walk.
mm,
And it was just the coolest thing. And that song keeps resonating through my head since 6:30 this morning. I'm like, the brotherhood that we need to have amongst each other it's so needed because there are so I mentioned my men's group. It's called Men Becoming Better Men. Started actually, it's five years ago. Ironically, today, May 18th,
Heck yeah, congrats.
2019. It's our official 5-year anniversary. We meet every other week, so it's our off week this year. But 5 years ago today, we created that group, and it's part of. I've seen men come in. Men are consistently coming into that group and saying, "I feel alone. I'm disconnected. I just went through a divorce. My ex-wife is fighting with me over the kids and all of these things. And it breaks your heart to see so many men struggling in so many profound ways that it breaks my heart. And all I want to do, I want to grab them, lift them up and say, okay, let's figure this out.
But 10 years ago, this probably would not have been the path you thought you were going to take. I don't know your exact timeline, right?
10 years ago, I was that guy. I went through a divorce 10 years ago.
Right. And divorce that was a bit unexpected. And from your words, I've heard.
Well, no, not so much unexpected, just how it transpired ended up being unexpected. And the point of the issues that, I don't want to beat a dead horse too much, but because I've forgiven a lot of this, but my ex-wife, her main mission was to tear the kids away from me. And even though they were in their late teens, my daughter was almost 18 at the time. My son was 3 years younger, and her goal was to alienate me from my kids and not let me see them, and basically tarnish the relationship I had built with them over the past 15 to 18 years. And it was devastating. I was wrecked. I had no idea what to do, where to go, where to turn. And the problem, and why I focus so much on men's work, and a big part of it is connection, is because I lost all my, so going back, I had high school friends, I had college friends, but then I got married and I spent almost 19 years in marriage. And just the way things unfolded, I got to that end point. I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. But I had my brother lives in Texas. I live in Michigan, so couldn't count on him. I have 2 other buddies, college roommates of mine that they live here in Michigan, but they're over an hour away. I didn't have a man here specifically locally that I could go and sit with and just word vomit all this, crap that was going on in my life and get it off my chest. Cause that's how men are. We need to get stuff off our chest.
Mm-hmm.
The more we let it build up inside of us, that's when we end up sticking guns in our mouths and stuff like that. And I've known men that have done that too. But yeah, just being able to get through that on my own, through that divorce part and through that alienation piece, it took me everything I had. And then miraculously one day, I found an advertisement on Facebook, of all places. As much as people bash Facebook, I have a place in my heart for Facebook because it kind of technically saved my life. I saw an ad for high performance men coaching, and I hemmed and hawed. And I think I said this yesterday. I think I must have seen it multiple times. Because stuff keeps popping up, and maybe it was the fourth, fifth, sixth time I saw it. It's like, you know what? I feel like maybe this is something I need. And I jumped in. It was a big stretch for me, financially, mentally, everything, but best investment I ever made. And I've continued to make that investment in myself to this day, because when I have that extra resource in my toolbox every day, my life is exponentially better than when I don't. I can do pretty much level by myself, but in the last, I started working with the coach I'm working with now 2 months ago, and I'm on a trajectory, just a massive trajectory, and it's a godsend. It really is.
So take me back to that time you're going through this divorce. You said the phrase that it saved your life.
Yeah.
What were you feeling? What were you grappling with? And what were you sort of looking for at that point in time?
Was grappling with the fact that my kids are. Can you hear those dogs?
It's not bad.
Okay.
They sound friendly.
Okay. Well, it's annoying. I was going to close the window, but if I close the window, then I'll overheat.
It's all good.
Anyway, sorry. Where was the question
You
again?
said you were grappling with the idea that maybe your kids aren't going to be in your life.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm grappling with. So they're both older. My daughter was 18. She's graduating from college, graduating from high school, going off to college. Um, my son was not far behind. He had his driver's license. He was playing all his sports and doing all his things. And I'm sitting there realizing, okay, I've just left the marriage. I've got, my kids have pretty much. I've done everything that a dad can do that isn't financial, right? Getting them through college and that stuff. But of course, there's still advice to be given. But the day to day being a dad, being a parent stuff was kind of had run its course. So
Hmm.
I'm standing there by myself, going, "Wait a minute, what? Wait, what else? I'm 45 years old. This can't be it. This
Hmm.
can't, this can't be it." And I start thinking, and I said earlier, I've known two other men who have taken their lives. I'm
Hmm.
thinking, oh, well, maybe I understand that now a little better, because you get to a point and you're like, okay, well, kids don't need me. Ex-wife never hasn't needed me for 20 years. Who does need me? I have this job. It's good. It's okay, but you feel that in your heart and in your soul that, yeah, I'm doing this job, but it isn't what I'm meant to be doing.
Can we just linger on that for a second? Because I do
Yeah,
think that is something that maybe isn't getting brought up in the conversation about men's mental health, is this
absolutely.
idea that they have a desire to be needed. Because I think we've been taught you need to be so stoic, like you need to
Yeah,
be so not emotionless, but to have like a need to be, something to someone else is kind of unmanly if you
yeah.
want to call it that.
Well, I
Where it's
mean,
like I have needs that I need
yeah,
met, and to stand up and say that is something that we really never got the tools when I was a kid
no, and
to learn how to do.
it's a basic human need. We all have a need for connection. We all have a need to be wanted. We all have a need to experience things. And yeah, when we run out of that, that's to me, at least in my logic, my thinking at the time, I was like, all right, if nobody really needs me, this job doesn't need, they can replace me tomorrow. Why not? Why not take
Mm,
myself out, make it easier, make it easier on me? Obviously, my parents are going to be upset. My kids are, they're probably going to be upset, but you know what? They'll be fine. And it was a very fleeting thought. It didn't last very long, at least for me. Obviously, 70% of men, 70% of suicides are men.
mhm.
Um, there's something there, and there's something we're not doing. Um, like you said, something we're not learning as young men, um, that keeps us connected to each other and gives us a place to go. I mean, the best way I can put it is to have somebody, because a lot of the things that, the trials and tribulations we have. If you have a bad day at work, and you're mad at your boss, you're mad at your coworker, whatever the case may be, you can't go home and tell your wife that every single day.
Mhm.
Can't vent to her, because the research shows that is, and the statistics are, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's like two thirds to three quarters, somewhere in that range, of divorces are initiated by the wife.
That is what I've also heard.
And the reason for that is because these women are looking at men that do this, that come home, complain. It's like, wow, he's not the man I thought he was, because all he does is bitch and moan and complain and play victim because his boss is mean or his coworkers are stupid or whatever the case may be. So now she starts rewinding And then after about 2 years of thinking this, that's when she goes and grabs the attorney and files for divorce. And then the man's crushed because okay, my situation, I initiated it. I was unhappy in my marriage for a long time. But in the case of where a man is completely blindsided because he thinks things are fine, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden she shows up, or he gets served or whatever, and it breaks him. The number of men that I've met who have been broken by a wife asking for a divorce is staggering.
Yeah, men are much less in tune to
Yeah,
emotions and subtleties than women. So
absolutely.
sometimes the wife might be like, "I can't possibly understand how you didn't see this coming." And it's like, well, we're sort of speaking different languages. Like a man can't necessarily read women's body language or
Yeah.
their subtleties nearly as well as women can read other women. And that's kind of an evolution thing where women would need to kind of fight and understand each other on a more emotional level, whereas guys could just be like, "I don't like this guy, Imma hit him."
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was very overt, like, "I hate this guy, like, I'm gonna physically go after him," whereas
Yeah.
women would have to do that kind of bidding, more as an undercurrent type of thing. So,
Yeah.
yes, I don't think men evolutionarily have the tools nearly as equipped as women, but also in those relationships, that's a big thing that if divorce is just, like, snap out of a finger, it's usually the man that's blindsided, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it far too often, and it's a tragedy. And if these men, to my back to my point, if these men had an outlet, whether it's to have a coach, a one-on-one, one-on-one coach, or a group coaching type situation, like we have in Men Becoming Better Men, it gives you somewhere to go. We've got one guy. I use him as an example a lot. I'm gonna have to start giving him some money for something for giving me this story, but he's been showing up for almost five. Almost, he's been there almost since the beginning. He comes about every 2 weeks. He's pretty consistent, and he talks about the same thing every time. He talks about some of it's trials at work, a lot of it's trials with the wife because she has some issues, mental issues, and it's a burden on him. But he's learned that instead of fighting with her about it, he comes and vents to us about it, gets it off his chest, and in the 2.5 hour span every 2 weeks that we sit down and talk and give him the floor to, he gets a small portion of that total time, but he gets it off his chest and he feels a heck of a lot better. And now he's got the energy and strength and stamina to go through the next 2 weeks of dealing with all this stuff till he can come back again and word vomit all over us again. But it works for him.
Bob, do you
And
maybe just want to talk about like how society has changed a little bit because these men only spaces used to be a lot more common, and I
yeah,
think that was a coping mechanism for both men and women. Obviously,
mhm,
there's women only spaces,
yeah,
but now that's a very like controversial idea. I mean, the Boy Scouts no longer the Boy Scout. I think they're just called the Scouts, if I'm not
yeah, right. Yeah,
which,
that's tragic.
whatever your decision making is on that. One thing that's obvious for grown or older men, there are no longer these spaces where, men can just kinda have those conversations, like you said,
Exactly.
talk about their wives, and
Yeah, men's club.
I think one I think one of the things that maybe, like, women don't understand, and I've tried to explain this to some of my female friends, and I think it's hard for them to understand, is that when it's, like, just 6 guys, we're just, like, shooting the shit, we're doing whatever, we're just talking crazy nonsense, like, we're
Yeah.
trying to talk about, like, well, if you could go back in time, would you be a samurai, a pirate, or a cowboy? That's the joke, like, you
Yeah.
come home to the wife or the girlfriend, and they're like, how's, Dave's baby?" And you're like, "Oh, we didn't talk about his baby." Like, "Well, how's his wife?" Like, "We didn't talk about his wife."
My wife did that to me this morning. I love it.
They're like, "He just had a baby 6 weeks ago. What do you mean?" It's like, "I don't know. We just didn't talk about it." "Well, what did you talk about?" It's like, me and my
He
best
wants to be a
friend
samurai.
yeah, me and my best friend, like, we just talk about, like, trading options and stocks, and, they'll be like, "What's going on with his baby?" Like, "Oh, I don't know. He was just talking to me about trade he was thinking about doing." Um, but where I was going with that is that once there's a woman involved, whether she's, like, a girlfriend of someone or she's a single female and there's single guys, like, guys just, like, sort of change, And I know
Mm,
it sounds bad, but the way that you're interacting is just gonna be different, right? There's always, like, 1 or 2 guys that are sorta, like, vying for this girl's interest or approval, and guys might now start playing the status game. You talked about competition. Guy might throw a little jab at another guy to, like, try to move himself up in the pecking hierarchy,
mhm.
and if
Back to
you're in
competition.
those situations as a guy, you can just feel it. There's something's totally different here now that, Susie's here in the room.
Yeah,
And I don't think women understand that, and then they'll say, "Well, that's a guy thing, you have to just figure that out." And it's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, I would love to, like, rewire how all men work, but the short term is it's not gonna happen generally." So,
yeah,
it's just it is what it is. When you're in a male-only situation, the dynamic is totally different.
yeah, absolutely. And it's necessary. It's necessary. We gotta be able to have excuse me, we gotta be able to have those conversations. We gotta be, if we want to talk about, being a samurai or what, those are us being kids. We obviously grew up too fast. We had, I personally, I had issues when I was a kid. I was bullied. I was, overweight. I had glasses, braces, the whole shebang. I would, I I was not, the best, most athletic or the best looking or any of that. And of course, those types of things wreck you. Those are part of what I call death by a thousand cuts.
Mm,
In men's trauma. Either you got your big T traumas and you got your little T traumas, and I feel like I've had 1,000 little T traumas that have all added up to, they could equal one big, trauma and abuse or something like that. Um, but there's all it's all it's I don't want to say it's the same, but it's similar in that we make the same meanings of these traumas that we experience, and it forms our identity. It forms our beliefs, and it makes us believe that we're, not the man that we could be or should be. So we hide behind all the, whether it's masks or whatever, or just completely hide altogether and not be the real man that we are. And then, not having that purpose driven life to say, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do that, for whether it's my community or my family or whatever. They lose their, just lose that purpose and lose time. And
mm.
I lost so much time. I played I played simulated sports games and did fantasy football and all that stuff for decades, man. And I look at that now. It's one of my big regrets in life is that all that time that I spent doing that kind of stuff instead of doing stuff that mattered, which, facilitating men's groups, leading an F3 group here, um, doing different serving opportunities at my church, and then one-on-one coaching and just helping other men see these things that maybe they're missing out, because we get in that, what I call the hamster wheel of go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home, spend all weekend sitting around the couch watching sports or doing whatever, or playing golf, or, at least you get out and play golf. But again, that's, to me, that is just more of a competitive.
Mm,
Men are, I can hit the ball farther than you can hit the ball, or,
gener
it just,
yeah.
it doesn't help the collective. It doesn't help the community of men to take care of all of those either big T or little T traumas that we've had in our childhood and growing up.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw this, study that came out from Robin Dunbar of all people. I'm just looking at it right here. Men need to drink, it says drink via CBS News, but that's not what the study says. Men need to drink with friends twice a week to stay healthy, study finds. Guys, if you're looking for a good excuse to hang out with your friends, well, now you have one, your health. New study conducted by Oxford suggests that men grabbing a few beers with your buds, not only a good time, it's equal to good health. Seriously, guys' night, it's a must. Sorry, ladies. It's actually more like two. So, in essence, they are of the understanding now that men who do not spend kind of time with their friends are actually cutting their health span short, which is interesting because I think the same is true for men that don't have a long-term partner. So
Yeah.
it's like, geez, damned if you do, damned if you don't. How do you maybe encourage guys to still have that, balance? Because a lot of people that I know that get married, and it sounds like maybe in your life you experienced this, and maybe this could have been an outlet for you in your first marriage, where instead of, like, saying, "I need some alone time," like, I'm not being a bad dad or a bad husband by taking time spending it alone or with my friends.
Yeah.
I'm actually, going out and recharging so I can come back and give you more energy. How do you coach men up on that?
Oh, that's one of the keys of the whole program is just finding those things. And again, it's different for everybody, right? It depends on who you are and what you're doing. And but for me, in this past 7 years since I've been doing this, I add on more things all the time. I find different ways and different things. I mean, from everything from I usually go get a monthly massage, which is kind of a weird taboo kind of almost thing that everybody's got these preconceived notions of massages
What kind of massages are they, Bob?
and stuff like that. But but I go because it feel my love language is physical touch,
Mm,
and for me to go and get a massage, it feels dang good to me, and that's one of the ways I go in and recharge myself. I go to the gym. I need that time to go and kind of purge the engine, so to speak, and get those things off my chest, out of my system, and just sweat it out. And honestly, men's group for me, for any man listening to this right now, my biggest takeaway, if you don't listen to another word that Alex and I say this whole time, get yourself in a men's group. It is by far the most powerful, impactful thing I've ever done in my life for myself and my own, whether it's personal healing, personal growth, regaining my personal power. Um, I was powerless when my first marriage ended. I was powerless, man. She
mm,
had taken everything away from me.
mm,
I mean, even as simply as I used to love playing softball and hockey, and there was two things I had done earlier on in my marriage, and but because of the guilt of you're going to go do that again, or why are you going to play hockey at 11 o'clock at night? You got to get up work the next morning, and just the nagging and the criticism and the lack of support that I was getting. I gave all those things up,
mm,
and that's when I really start. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but in the last couple of years of that marriage, I was losing it, man. I was depressed. Actually ended up medicated, probably the last 2 or 3 years of my life of that marriage. Excuse me.
good.
I thought I turned all those off. The last couple of years of my marriage, I was medicated, and it took me until probably a year after the divorce to get off of those medications because I regained my life. Right, I
Mm,
was able to go and do things. I started playing ball again. I didn't go back to hockey because I got too old for that. But I started working out and doing things for me to fill my cup. Massages and all these other things. Meditating. Oh my God, meditation has been a huge game changer for me to be able to sit and just you know, be, whether even if the thoughts are creeping in, it doesn't matter. Just to have that practice for the last 7 years has been just an amazing way for me to take care of myself, so that I can help pour into other men. And that's again a big part of what I'm going to do in my one-on-one coaching is to help men find purpose. First of all,
mm,
like I said, I got to that point in time where, yep, I've raised my family. Okay, what's next? What is there? A lot of people, I'm going to keep doing my job. I'm going to, keep working this corporate job or keep doing this, whatever. And unfortunately, not the majority of men are not like you, where they're got this entrepreneurial thing. You start this business, you start growing it and feeding it and taking care of it. A lot of people. I've been in the corporate world for almost 30 years,
Mm.
and it's not where I wanted to be. So helping somebody find what their true purpose is massive. Another thing we work on, obviously, connection. We've talked about getting connected with, whether it's men's groups or smaller groups, or just just things that you're interested in. Using different tools for, if you like to go hiking, getting into a hiking group, things like that. Um, Other ways of connecting with yourself, finding love in your own self, forgiving yourself for, maybe it's a past indiscretion or something like that. Forgiving people in your past. Listening to a book yesterday while I was out on a hike, talking about forgiving, people that have wronged you in the past, and how powerful that is. And I totally resonate with that. And then the last one, and I think probably one of the more important pieces, is integrity. And if you ask a man if he has integrity, of course he's going to say yes. But when you really deep dive into it, you talk about, okay, if you're, the excuse or the example off the top of my head I can think of is, you say you're living in integrity with yourself, but you're like 20 pounds overweight. You drink beer every weekend, and you don't go to the gym. So how are you living in integrity with, what your body wants to take care of itself and protect itself, but you're drinking every weekend, you're not working out, and you're driving all the stress into your life. And so it's using those. Oh, wait, the four agreements, right? The book, the biggest one: be impeccable with your word.
Mm.
Do what you say you're going to do. If I say I'm going to lose weight, or I say I'm going to keep myself healthy because I'm going to work out, exercise, you got to do that. You can't just say you're going to do it and then not do it, because every time we make one of those promises with ourselves and say, I'm going to work out 3 days a week, but then you go 1 or 2 days, and then you skip the third day, and then next week you go 1 week, and then you never go again. You've broken your promise to yourself.
Yeah, and I always thought about that as you're really, instead of practicing a good habit, you're practicing a bad habit. Like,
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
practicing getting really good at breaking,
Yeah,
uh, your promises to
exactly.
yourself. There's actually,
Exactly.
this funny kind of saying, I'm paraphrasing, from the richest man in Babylon, and he says, "If I tell myself every day that I walk down this path, I'm going to pick up a stone and throw it into the river," he's like, "I'm going to do it." He's like, "And for
Mhm.
that reason, I don't make silly agreements with myself that
Exactly.
I don't want to have to keep." And I
Yeah.
was, "Oh, that's a really interesting way of thinking about it," because he's like, "If I tell myself I'm gonna do it, I want to do it. I wanna stick to it." So
Yeah.
I focus on trivial things and say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna, whatever the thing is, I'm gonna collect soup cans." Like, if
Yeah.
you can do it, don't do it, and don't promise yourself that you're going to.
Have you read The Greatest Salesman in the World?
I don't think I have read that one.
All right. So the premise, it's a great book, first and foremost. But the
Definitely have heard of it.
part of the gist of that book is there's 10 scrolls throughout the last 10 chapters of the book, basically, or maybe the last 9 chapters, or not the last 10. Anyway, last 10 chapters of the book. But each scroll, the gist of it is you are supposed to read each of those scrolls. So scroll 1, you read for 30 days.
Mm,
Scroll 2, you read the next 30 days. Scroll 3, you read for the next 30 days. So again, commitment, right? Each of these scrolls is chock full of just good stuff. Um, so here's the funny part. I finished yesterday was my last day for scroll number 3,
mhm.
and I was in such a automatic, gotta do it. You're supposed to read it 3 times a day.
Oh,
First in the
geez.
morning, after your midday meal, and before you go to bed. So I'm in this habit now for 90 days. I'm in such a habit of reading these 3 scrolls a day for 90 days. I read scroll 3 today. I was supposed to start scroll 4. I was so focused on the habit. My habit was read scroll 3. I didn't realize till halfway through scroll 3, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to start scroll 4 today.
Mm.
It's that, but again, that's like what you were saying. It's making that commitment. And when I made that commitment, actually part of scroll one talks about that commitment is I will not break this commitment. There's verbiage of
Mhm.
along those lines in scroll one, and you read that for 30 days and it sticks. It's an amazing book. And when you talk about integrity and keeping your word, again, I'm only 90 days into it, and it's already changed the way I think about making commitments. And like you were saying too, if you're not going to do it, don't make it. Don't say
Mhm.
you're gonna lose 10 pounds and quit after two. Don't say you're going to start a workout routine and then start after a week or a month. Because those, again, like you said, it's true. We're training ourselves to break promises with ourselves, which is leads to more guilt, more shame, more of all the bad things that we think
Mhm.
about ourselves.
Yeah, when it comes to fitness, I mean, I see this all the time where guys will say, "Yeah, I'm gonna train, 3 days a week." And I'm like, "Alright, well, what days are those?" It's like, "Okay, it's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday." And then on Tuesday, "Well, I have to, like, go do this and that and the third." And
Yeah,
I just telling 'em, I'm like, "Look, I don't make my training optional." Like, I
yeah.
know these people who will, like, listen to their body, which if you can do that, great.
If,
But,
if you're doing it 7 days a week, sure, I'll give you that one, but
like,
not 3 days a week.
I know if I try to, like, listen to my body, I will make up any excuse that I possibly can to not do it. There's kind of the old parable about the man who has the hole in his roof, and it's sunny outside, so, well, why would I repair the roof today? It's sunny out, like, there's actually light shining into my house, it's
Yeah,
lovely.
it's
It kinda
great.
doesn't make sense to even repair the roof. And then it begins to rain, and he goes, "Well, I can't repair the roof right now, it's raining, it would be dangerous to be on the roof right now, I'll wait until it's sunny." So it's like, you can fool yourself. The first
Yeah.
principle is, don't fool yourself, and you're the easiest to fool. So I just tell people, I'm like, "Look, if you set your days, just don't make it optional. Like, don't make it, 'I will train today if I'm feeling like it.'" Like,
Non-negotiable.
just
That's the
do it.
word.
Just
That's
do
the
it.
word I use. Non-negotiable. I put it. It's in my calendar. It's non-negotiable. I started a new job. Um, Probably it's been for 6 years now. I think
Mm.
my day corporate job, and I would get up at 4:30, pack my bag, and start walking out. And eventually, after a couple weeks, the guys were looking at me. Why do you leave so early? I'm like, hey, I I go to the gym. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm at the gym at 5:30. Regardless, I don't care, and nothing, and barring a absolute non, you know, something I can't get around. Um, I'm there. So, and putting that in the calendar and sticking to it, planning around it. Um, that's kind of the hard. It's been the hard thing with the men's group. A lot of guys will come in and be like, "Well, yeah, but I got to work on Saturday." Like, well, it's tough, but you can either engage in the value of this, go back to your bosses, tell them you got to rework your schedule. You can't work every other Saturday or something. Work something out,
Mm.
or because we're going to be here every other Saturday, whether you're working or not.
Right.
So put it in your schedule, put it in your calendar, schedule everything around it. If you do that, and not only does it make life easier, but it makes life more valuable because you're getting fed through doing it.
Bob, while we're talking about your corporate job, you were sort of were you an engineer? Were you a trained engineer? Or
Uh,
just
no,
in the
I'm not a degreed engineer, but I'm a program. I'm what they call a program manager. So I've worked with engineers, um, basically cradle to grave on product development and design and testing for almost 30 years.
you're the business guy who keeps them in check, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay.
Timing and the business and the dollars and the things like that. Yeah.
So you call yourself a relationship engineer, and I was hearing you say that you sort of just took all your training from the engineering world and sort of the light went off and you thought, "Oh, like, this is just a problem. This is sort of an engineering problem at some capacity.
Yeah.
Uh, so I can treat this like an engineering problem, and I can engineer my relationship." Obviously, this was after your first marriage.
Right. Yes.
Maybe just talk to me about relationship engineering, because I know there's gonna be people out there listening that go like, "Well, no, it's love. Bob doesn't get it. It's, fluttering my stomach, it's magic, it's that spark on the first date.
Yeah.
How do you think about it?
Um, that's a good question. I've learned enough things in my second marriage and relationship, um, that I realized I did it right. I was doing it wrong the first time.
Mm,
Whether she, regardless of what her piece of it was, like I said, I've let all that go and forgiven her, forgiven myself. But there's things that I didn't do right. Um, and that's why, not and relationship engineering isn't just with a spouse, a romantic relationship. It's also relationship with ourselves, because that,
mm,
in my case, that was a huge piece. I have never had a real good relationship myself until the last few years. Um, Again, healing those traumas I mentioned earlier. The issue I had, when I was an infant, even realizing that what that caused, um, and how to heal that, get through that, and to be able to move past it. Kind of reprogram myself from the identity that I had taken on when I was an infant. Um, so it's a relationship with self. It's a relationship with, obviously, romantic partners. Things to do, things not to do.
mm,
One of my the most obvious, and the one I've probably given the most people this tip, is date nights. If you are not doing a regular date night with your wife, you are at high risk of her, going down that path we talked about earlier, right? That he's not being a man. He's not taking me out. He's not showing me appreciation. He's not showing me
mm,
love. He's not, those things that women need, that we don't necessarily need, but they need.
mm.
And just understanding those things, and being able to do that. But my the advice I tell every man I talk to, I'm like, that's the first question I ask: do you go on a regular date night? Oh no, we go out once in a while. No, regular, again, that non-negotiable. Put it in the calendar. My wife and I, literally, it's in our calendar. It's actually tonight. Um, we're going to event tonight, instead of going out to dinner or going to the movies or something. We're going to a baseball game, actually. Um, but having it's in our calendar every 2 weeks, and we do it consistently, whether we have something to do or not. Sometimes we just go grab takeout and sit in the parking lot at the restaurant, and so we don't have to interact with people and whatever. But sometimes it's movies, sometimes it's going for a hike or a walk, or like today, the ball game, whatever. Sometimes we'll do it with another couple.
Mhm.
But just to have that specific time in the calendar to go do it.
Why do
So
you think that most men kinda let that fall by the wayside? Is it just they're fatigued, they're tired, they're like, "Hey, I already got the gal," like
yeah, it's a complacency, it's a comfort thing, maybe. I don't know. It's been I've been doing it for 10 years now. I don't even remember why. Maybe it's just too ignorance. I would say that's probably where it came from in my first marriage. I was just ignorant of the fact that I needed to do that. I didn't understand women enough to, realize that is massively important, to
mm,
show her that, you know, she's worthy. She's, beautiful. She's you adore her. All of those things. That's one simple dinner can tell her all of those things without you saying a word.
mhm,
And to do it on a consistent, regular basis. I want to be with you. I want to be seen with you. I
mhm,
see you, and I want to be seen with you. Because
yeah,
a lot of times, there's another analogy that I use with men quite often, when they're talking about their daughters, right? um, do you have kids?
single, no,
No? Okay. So if for fathers of daughters, we know this, because every little girl, right? She ends up doing the dress up. She'll dress up as a princess, right? Yeah, the Disney princess, whole thing. Um, and the reason they do that is because they want you to see them. They come out, and I remember my daughter used to do this in these plastic high heel shoes, in her princess dress, and she'd come out like, fashion show. And yes, she's playing, but she's also looking for validation, and to be told she's beautiful and cherished. And that's one of the keys with the women never outgrow that mindset. They want to
Mm,
be cherished. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be, and I'm not saying this to be sexist. Don't get me wrong. This is just, it's programmed into, it's a thing that's a programmed into a woman's mind that she needs that. And if you think about it, even, you have a mom, I'm sure. Think about your mom, you know, does she do, my mom does. My mom still does it. And she's, into her 70s, she still does. She wants to be seen. She wants to be told she's appreciated and loved and all this. They want to hear these things. And again, it's not that it's an issue. It's just a fact.
mm,
And if we are able to lean into that on a consistent basis, again, that non-negotiable date night type of scenario, if your wife is, maybe she's gifts of affirmation. Bringing her flowers every 2 weeks would do the exact same thing. My wife's got multiple love languages, which makes it fun because it gives me options. But in addition to touch, in addition to the quality time, which again, taking her out on a date, that's quality time. It's me, her, one-on-one quality time that fills her up.
mm. Have you ever read any of the work by, Esther Perel? Do you know about her?
I've heard of her. I've not engaged in any of her work.
I think you'd really like this book, Mating in Captivity. She's got
Okay.
2 back-to-back books, but Mating in Captivity, one of the really interesting things that she talked about was that once women become a mother, they go into this, like, maternal mode, and you kinda have to snap them out of it and let them know, like, "Hey, you are a mother, but you're also a wife. Like, you're also,
Yes.
like, still attractive, and, like,
Yes.
you can still be, someone who dresses up, puts on the dress, and Bob takes you out to dinner, and you kinda are, like, hot that night."
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the things that you're hitting on is when you stop doing that, just goes into mom mode, and I have friends that have told me that once they have kids, like, their sex life kind of just, like, shuts off and shuts down, and I recommend them in this book, amongst other things that are happening that, makes it a lot more difficult to kinda still have that connection, and not to mention there's another body in the picture and all the responsibilities that go with having kids. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of difficult things about staying in a relationship. Which is one of the
Yeah.
things I wanted to ask you about is about divorce. I'm not married, so how would you coach someone up to try to, like, do it once, measure twice, cut once, if you will? That's, like, one of my biggest fears is, like, getting married and getting divorced.
Yeah. Um, one of the questions I've given this to people, um, in that situation. One of the first things I tell them as you're going through the process of dating, which I hear is completely chaos these days, but
Oh, we can talk about it. It's a wild world out there, man.
one of the first things, and I've actually told this more to women, but it can apply to men too. Um, well, two things for men. Well, first is the person needs to be into personal growth and verifying that with a question like, why, if you were to ask them what their biggest dream was, and they tell you it's this, and the other thing. And say, well, why haven't you achieved that yet? Well, because my mom did this and that, or my dad did this and that, or my
Mm,
ex-boyfriend did the. If they're blaming everybody else, that means they're still in that victim mentality. That means even if they're telling you, yeah, I'm into personal growth, but they're still, everything is a victim. Is the ex-boyfriend or the ex this or parents or whatever. If they're in that victim mentality, that means they're just going to bring that into your relationship. So
mm.
that's the first thing.
So what kind of things would you see that manifest in, that they potentially are blaming you for the shortcomings of the
Yeah,
relationship, or blaming you for not necessarily fulfilling them,
yeah,
was one of the things I was gonna say
yeah. They're
earlier.
going to blame you. They're not going to. Their bottom line is they're not taking responsibility for their own everything. We are responsible for our own well being first
Mm,
and foremost, 100% of the time. Whether you have kids, whether you have a spouse, whatever. you've got to take care of your own mental state and be good with yourself first, and realize that things that are going on in your life are nobody else's fault but yours,
Mm.
because you have the right, you have the ability and the right to choose your path.
Yeah, and that's just a hyper intense place to be, where you are expecting your spouse or significant other to be everything for you.
Yeah,
Be your best friend, be your lover, be your business partner, be the best dad in the world,
yeah,
be the best, uh cousin, uncle, all of these things, whereas you didn't necessarily need that in the past. Like we talked about, there were these men's groups, but you would get, like, community from the church, and maybe, like, grandma and grandpa would actually live with you, so you would get, like, a little connection with them, or maybe your cousin would live near you, like,
mhm,
just a block, or you would, like you said, go to these different community events and things like this.
yeah,
Now we've become very isolated in the family structure, and to your point, if you have a significant other that's like, "Well, why are you going out to play softball at 11 o'clock at night?
mhm,
Why do you need to do that?" It's kinda like saying, "Well, why am I not everything to you?"
exactly.
Which
And
makes
that,
the spouse feel like, "I'm not good enough," but the reality is that that's a ridiculous place to try to put yourself in, to say,
yep,
"I can be absolutely everything for you," because
yeah,
eventually you're gonna fall short of something.
yeah. So if you know going into a relationship, if you can thrive, you personally can thrive in your life, every area. Get out. You should Google Wheel of Life on Google, and it'll tell you all the different areas of life. If you can thrive in every area of your life without somebody else's help, then you're ready.
Mm,
That'd be for a first step. Then finding another person. Again, it's hard enough to just find a girl to go out with you at this point, and to not, you know, I've heard horror stories from the men's group about dating. But anyway, but then finding a woman, same thing, where she knows she can she can go through the rest of her life taking care of herself. She doesn't need a person, but she
mm,
wants a person.
mm.
Then that's a good foundational start.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like the jump off point that
yeah.
if you don't reach those things, then, like, do not pass go.
And then the second big thing for men that I always communicate is the probably the number one criteria is she's got to support what you do.
Mm,
My wife is an angel. Um, like I said, I've got men's group, I've got the workout group that I'm starting. I do men's ministry at church. I do all kinds of stuff all the time, and she supports every piece of it. And it actually has made her more appreciative of me, because I'm using, she knows I'm using my time that I'm not with her to lift other people up. And to have a woman like that in my life that supports what I do, I mean, I specifically, I put time aside. Like I said, we have date nights, we hang out, we watch TV together almost every night for at least an hour or something at the end of my day. Um, we spend time together, but having that is probably the most empowering thing that you can have. To have a woman that no matter what, she's got your back, you've got her back, obviously, and that's what I didn't have in my first marriage. I had a, I unfortunately I didn't know enough when I was 21 years old or so, when I met her, to see the signs of that victim situation I talked about, where everything that's going wrong is somebody else's fault.
mm,
And then the supportive part, I mean, right off the get-go, I was going out with my friends in college, and she was questioning from that very
mm,
first, before we even walked down the aisle, she was already questioning, why are you hanging out with them more than you're hanging out with me? And not supporting, my mission and what I had to do and needed to do at that time in my life. And I should have, God willing, I didn't, because I have two amazing children with her that are, they're gonna, of all the things I've done in my life, they're gonna end up far exceeding that. And I love knowing that, because they're both in medical school right now. They're both pursuing degrees, and are going to help people themselves. So I couldn't ask for a better scenario with that. So it was all meant to be. It's
mm.
just it was a little rough and rocky along the way, but it's helped me learn what I know now so I can help other people to see that as well. So,
Yeah, that's always been a difficult one for me when I can see that my friends are in that situation where, not to pick on girls, but they have a female in their life who's, not to say controlling, that's probably not the right word,
mhm,
just, like, very, like, protective over,
yeah,
almost like, well, yeah, as you stated, "Why are you going out with your friends? What type of back? What bars are you going to?" And I always just thought from, like, female perspective, that seems to me like a good way to push someone away from you.
yeah,
But to your point, Bob, I mean, I've seen some of those people get married, and I'm like, "Look, that's not for me." Like, I don't think I would put up with that for very long, but a lot of guys end up doing so
yeah.
and moving their relationship
And
long.
it's not to say that these women are bad or it's wrong or in any way. I don't want anybody to get me wrong. It's just that what I would encourage that woman to do if she feels that way, that's if that's her goal in finding a relationship with a man, got back up, just to push the brakes for a second, back up and do some work on yourself and figure out why that is, because chances are, and I had a conversation with a young lady a couple weeks ago. Um, we unearthed something in in her past, I'd call it a medium T trauma. It wasn't a big T trauma, but it wasn't a little one either. It was pretty significant. Um, but it happened to her when she was 2 years old, and
Mm,
it's caused her to have this particular. Sharing too many details on purpose just for confidentiality, but um, a specific mental health issue
mm,
that she's experienced over the last 5 to 10 years of her life that was caused by this identity and belief that she created in herself when she was 2 years old. She
mm,
had no idea, and she was like, her jaw was literally dropped when I was explaining to her this is why she was the way she was, and it blew her mind that she had work to do, and she had to sort that out, whether it's with a counselor or a coach or a friend, somebody help her to sort that situation out so she could reconcile it and overcome her issue. But she's also in a relationship too, because so she's going to bring that damaged piece of herself into that relationship, and it's a shaky foundation.
yeah, I had a gal on who her area of study sort of is attachment styles, and you'll see very commonly you have the avoidant attachment style, and, it's slipping my mind the other one that is more like needy, essentially, so they're like magnets, they just can't push each other together, and, yeah, I mean, that sounds like what that gal might have been experiencing, where she had that, like, need to jump in, and I see that a lot with relationships. It really seems to me it manifests in insecurity.
Yeah,
Just as you sorta said, one way or another, you're insecure about your position in the relationship, or I think for maybe guys, you're insecure about moving on to a different relationship, like, "This would be really difficult for me to move on," and, like, "Am I actually gonna
it's
work with."
for guys. I think it's the work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, for sure.
You got to start. I actually, a friend of mine the other day, he's like, "Yeah, I broke it off with this girl. They'd been dating for a couple months. He saw a lot of those signs, like I mentioned. That it just she was being needy. She wanted more of his time. He was trying to establish boundaries. She kept breaking through them, and he's finally said, "No, we can't do this." But
Mhm.
he was mourning the relationship because he liked the girl. It was he wanted to be clear about that, but it was also he also didn't want to start over again. You
Mhm.
got months invested in this, and now you got to go back to square zero, and you got to start with that first awkward conversation, and everything else that goes along with a new relationship. And just it's tedious.
Yeah.
It really is.
Anxious attachment is the other attachment style
Ah,
that
okay.
we're for there. So how do you coach people up that are, like, coming off divorce to date? That's gotta be, like, a heck of a thing, and obviously you went through it. How did that work for you, and how do you coach guys or gals up on that process?
First thing we start with is gratefulness.
Mm,
What are you grateful for? Um, And if they can't get through that then it becomes very challenging because, um, again, a lot of people coming out of divorce, we get stuck in that victim mentality. I know I was for a while.
Essentially, they would not be in a place to date unless they can say, "Hey, I'm grateful I'm alive. I'm grateful I got all my
Yeah,
life, limbs, and faculties."
yeah. Like I said, I'm grateful to my ex-wife because we have two incredibly amazing children. I can't. There's no way, shape, or no way that I could ever say that that wasn't a benefit to the world that my children are doing what they're doing. Um, but yeah, to be able to for a man coming out of a divorce, especially like I mentioned earlier, the man that comes out where he got blindsided. You know, she left because he was being a wimp. You got to build that back up, and
Mm,
that starts with foundational. Get back to not only gratefulness, but it's taking care of your body. Chances are he's not working out,
mm,
he's not eating right, he's probably drinking or smoking or doing something else that is not benefiting him. So we start at the ground floor and we work our way up through those channels to, and then, even as far as fixing relationships with kids, like I had to do myself. It was very challenging when they were being told that I was basically the devil to rebuild my relationships with the kids that I raised for almost 18 years. um, his job. I had challenges when I was going through my divorce with my career. I ended up I ended up saying the wrong thing to the wrong person and got demoted.
mm.
Then I got put into the glass box where I couldn't go any higher. I had to leave that, and I had to leave that company to go higher. So again, a lot of things can happen coming out of divorce if we're not cognizant of, the again, it comes back to that starting point of gratefulness. I am grateful just to be here. I am, I'm honored to be here. I'm okay. I'm not alone. Again, I'm not alone comes back to connecting with other men who have been through it. If I had it, I love the fact that when a new man shows up in our men's circle, says, "Yeah, I am 40 whatever, and I just came out of a divorce, and I'm trying to rebuild myself." I'm like, "Brother, come on in, because that you are in the right place, because I've been where you're at, and I know how to help get you back out of that."
Is it
Uh,
sort of the light switch moment when someone can change their thinking from, like, "I'm at rock bottom in my life," to, "Hey, I'm blank slate at this point in
yeah,
time." Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
I don't have to keep on with the relationship that I was doing. I don't have to keep on with the same job that I had hypothetically because, maybe my financial responsibilities have maybe they've cranked up, but maybe they've lessened at some capacity. I had all these routines that I had to follow. I had to be home at 6 o'clock, and now, like, if I wanna go start boxing at 6, I can do that. Like, is that
mhm,
the light switch sorta that a
yeah,
guy or a gal who's dealing with a divorce needs
yeah,
before they can move forward?
yeah. That's one of them. The other one is that he's not alone.
Mm.
We go through this, and I remember thinking it. I'm the only one going through this hell right now. And when you walk into a group like that, or talk to a coach, um, who's been through it like I have, it's like you realize that light switch, like you said, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's been through this, and because other somebody else has been through this means if they can get through it, I can get through it. If they can heal, I can heal. If they can find peace, I can find peace. If they can work their way back from depression and anger and shame back all the way up the emotional scale to joy, I can do that.
Mhm. Well, what are the stats that something like 80% of people who are divorced are remarried in 5 years? Something of that range?
I've not heard that statistic, but what I have heard is that the rate of second divorces is higher than first
I've
divorces,
also heard that, and
and
actually,
third is even worse.
one of the things that I heard that was surprising for me was divorces are just like anything else. They're like a Pareto distribution. There's, like, these super
Mhm.
divorcers that skew the numbers. So I think the numbers are like, I don't know, 50% of all divorces end in, or excuse me, 50% of all marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily accurate. It's just the total number of divorces per person is that. Essentially, like, me, I'm a super divorcer. I'm on, like, marriage 2, marriage 3, marriage 4, marriage 5.
Yeah.
But I have 5 divorces. I don't, I have 0. Um, but I'm pulling the numbers upwards, and then
Yeah.
people who are just, like, 1 marriage, no
Yeah.
divorce.
Well, but that's the thing though, is a person. I live this in my life. My stepfather has been married 7 times.
Wow.
My mom is number 7 for him. So yeah, it's interesting
For
in
now,
that
she is.
we're so something's wrong with the way we did the first one. So we don't learn the lesson. So it kind of goes into the second one and the third one and the fourth one. And somehow, finally, because they've been married now for 10, I think 10 or 12 years.
Alright.
I can't remember exactly what year they got married, but they've been together for a minute, and he's apparently learned, or she taught him one or the other. But
Mhm.
he's good now, and he's a wonderful man, and I'm grateful that he's there for my mom, and he takes good care of her, and um, yeah, but it took him a minute to learn,
Mm.
and like you said, he's one of those ones that skew the scales. Fortunately for me, I was able to learn very quickly after number one on how to do it better in number two. But again, unless you seek that counsel, and trust me, there's tons of coaches out there now, everything from relationships to money to health, you name it. There's somebody out there for any issue that somebody is struggling with. But to be able to, coming out of a divorce and engage with somebody who's been in that place, is invaluable. I wish I had it. It would have exponentially increased the rate of my recovery from it. Um, I dated my wife. We've been together now for almost 11 years. We dated for the first 5 or 6. We've only been married for 5. It took me that long, and
Mm.
we had some bumps through those dating years. Um, that where I was working on my healing, and Grace, again, she's amazing and forgiving. um, she allowed me that space to do that, and kind of live and grow and heal all at the same time. Now if I had to do it again and again, when knowing what I know now, what I've learned, is I'd have definitely waited. I should have waited coming out of the divorce, but because that'd be the best advice I can get anybody. Wait, get yourself right, get healed. Work with professionals to get yourself squared away before you jump back in. Because chances are you're gonna fail again, and we don't. Men hate failing, right? We want the most victories possible, and it's a recipe for disaster to jump out of one and come into another one right away.
Mm. Do you feel like divorce hits men or women harder?
Oh, it hits everybody hard. The husband, the wife, the kids, the parents.
Mm.
I mean, it hits everybody hard. It's a horrible situation. I've said this jokingly many times. So we all should wear a sign on our forehead that kind of indicates some of our major preferences. How often do you like to have sex? What's your love language? Are you on a growth? Are you growth orientated, or you have a fixed mindset? Some of those things should be imprinted in our heads, so that when we meet somebody, it's very clear that if mine don't align with yours, let's save ourselves $20 and skip this dinner.
I think, Silicon Valley is salivating at this dating app idea. I mean, and that's something that they are working on, like,
Yeah, I hope so, because
maybe
it's got to be better than what's going on out there for you guys right now. I hear stories from the men in my group that and the funniest part of all of that is my current wife and I met on a dating app.
mm.
and we she was probably like the third woman I connected with,
Jeez.
and we started dating. I'm so lucky.
What are you hearing from people who are on the dating apps right now?
Just that it's a nightmare. It's men and it's men and women. It's both. I hear both sides. That women are saying there's no good men. Men are saying there's no good women. It's a train wreck, and it's tragic because it's come down to that. Between social media and dating apps, people are I don't know. Do people meet in bars anymore? I don't even think that's a thing. Is it?
No, people don't wanna talk to each other,
Right.
honestly. Like, it's like stranger danger now. I think that's partially COVID,
Yeah.
that's partially Me Too, and then I think it's partially just our generation, has just become, like, phone people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they don't I feel it too, like, if a doctor's office wants me to call in to set an appointment, I'm like, Why do I have to call you?" Like, they've solved this, okay? It's called apps, alright? We can schedule our calendars together, you just send me yours, I can send you mine, we can pair it together, like, you don't need to have a call. So, yeah, I think that people don't necessarily want to, try to talk to each other, and I think some are more closed off, more standoffish, and we've been told over and over again that people are dangerous. Now, serial killer podcasts are the most popular form of consumption out there. So, like, every gal thinks that the next guy's a serial killer.
Yeah. Oh, you got human trafficking and all that. I mean, you see stuff all the time about human trafficking. Be careful. The men coming up behind you in the mall and
I mean, it's real, don't get me wrong. I'm
yeah,
not
it's
saying that
horrifying.
it doesn't happen at all, but I think that the perception of it happening is 100x of the reality of it
Yeah.
happening. So then everyone's, like, in this, like, fearful mode where they think that every guy's a serial killer or a rapist or a murderer or, like, a serial assaulter, and the reality is that, like, the number of people out there who are like that are just extremely small.
Yeah. Right.
Say don't, like, just let your guard down and be stupid or anything, but I think that our guard is, like, heightened to the point that, if you're a guy and you wanna go talk to a girl in a bar, a lot of times you're just, like, very like, why are you talking to me?" kinda thing.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?" kinda thing. But I would say the counter argument to that is because that happens even less, if you can obtain that skill of walking up to someone and just being, like, confident and having a conversation, now that's sort of like a superpower.
Yeah.
So there's 2 sides to that coin, but yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is really important for anyone who's on a dating app to understand is the amount of users on the dating app that are male are, like, 75%.
Hmm.
So 3 out of every 4 people on the app are male. So when you hear women go like, "Oh, there's no good guys out there," it's like, well, you just might not be matching with those guys, because it's all looks and attraction based now. So the distribution is again a Pareto distribution where you get these small group of guys who are like, your 8 and 9s out of 10s, and they get a ton of the matches. And then the guys who are your 3s and 4s out of 10s, they get a disproportionately small amount of matches.
Hmm.
Makes sense, right? Because if
Yeah.
a gal's an attractive gal, she's, like, getting hit up by all these guys, so she has to, like, filter very quickly through all these matches. And she's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna only go for the most attractive guys in here." But the thing that the gals don't understand is that the most attractive guys also have a lot of matches. So if this is like, the joke is
Well.
the turbo Chad, this is the 10 guy, he has his pick of gals. So if you're like a 6 or a 7 type of gal, this guy's a 10, like, you're not gonna get that match. So then they go, "Well, there's no good guys," and it's like, "Well, wait a minute, like, we're just dealing with these things out here." Not to mention the algorithms pre-sort for you, like, so
Yeah.
the algorithm thinks I'm a 6, they're gonna start to, like, pare me down to 6s. So then guys are like, "Oh, I'm getting, like, all these, like, unattractive girls. What's going on?" It's like the algorithm has, like, locked you in this thing. So
Yeah.
it's chaos, man. It really is, and it's a difficult system to navigate. There's little hacks and things like that, but then there's stories like yours where you're like, "Hey, the 3rd person I met, like, it worked out."
Yeah. My son just got married back in December. He met his wife now on dating app. I can't remember which one he used, but yeah, that was just in the last. It was just before COVID.
Mm.
Um, So 2019-ish, 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's a lot of people who are just like, "I'm just done with this." There's also, like, a large group of men out there who are just, like, not in
Yeah,
the dating market at all.
yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I think it's, like, something and I know some of these guys, um, they just go, "Yeah, I'm just not even going to be involved in this." So
It's just I don't think I could do it. I honestly don't. I love women, and just the benefits of being with a woman that is, again, supportive, understands your love languages, supports you no matter what, and is on a growth journey like you are,
mhm,
and understands that, maybe some things happened to be in my childhood or my adolescence that have messed me up, and I want to work on those. I want to fix those things, and you work on it together. That I can't see a better foundation for a relationship than wanting to be in that personal growth space together and working together, and obviously, having common interests and things like that, super important. That whole opposites attract thing, I never understood that. That's kind of my ex and I. We were opposites and
mhm.
thinking we were attracted, and it ended up not working out because we got to a point where we just I wanted to do my thing, she wanted to do her thing, and that was two different things.
Yeah, I think that some amount of polarity is important. I don't I don't want a long-haired version of myself. Like, I know that, like, I can be, like, difficult. I'm very, driven and hard charging and, like, we're gonna work out at, you know, 8:30 AM, and then I'm gonna go to Muay Thai, and then I'm gonna go do the podcast, and some people are just like, "I don't wanna do that." Like, I wanna relax, which I think is fine. But to your point, if they don't have a growth mindset, then yeah, that's difficult to get over, um, that. So, Bob, I know we're coming to about hour and a half here. Talk to me about other things that maybe we're not communicating about men becoming better men. I mean, I know that's the whole idea around your group connections, building rapport with other men, maybe also women. I'm not sure like how big the female part of the group is. But what are the other things that you think are important for guys to understand? Whether they're getting over divorce, they're just looking to be the best version of themselves, they're looking to get out of the dating market, or they're just wanting to improve and embark on their self improvement journey.
Yeah, one of the things I think we haven't touched on too much yet is purpose.
Mm,
Um, I, Again, it was such a important piece of my journey, um, to understand what my purpose is, and how I got there was basically through a list of questions, and they were challenging, not like softball questions. They were like hard, like what are your values? Um, there's some easy ones in there, like what's your favorite movie, but um, they all tie together in a particular way to find themes in kind of what the root of you are. Are you do you have a servant's heart, or are you super entrepreneur, or whatever the case may be, to help point you in the right direction. And I love helping men find that. Um, we actually have during the introductions part of our group meetings, we actually offer the men a chance to articulate what their purpose is, as part of, not only is your name important, your status important, but it's also what's your purpose. And since we've been doing that, it's kind of funny. One of the men that he's one of the leaders in the group. um, it always used to be real mundane, kind of, I want to take care of my family and provide for my family, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. And as time went by, it was interesting to how it changed and morphed into, so his I don't know verbatim, but something now it's about, I want to be a quota crushing, salesperson, yada yada yada. And it's just,
mm,
every time he says that, it just, I give the fist pump, kind of, because I just love when a man comes in and has all this garbage of past relationships or failures or whatever in his head, and over the course of time gets to a point where he realizes that he has power, he
Mm,
has knowledge, he has strength, and whether he's feeling shame or guilt or anger or whatever, that those things can be healed and put away. You don't have to keep reliving that over and over again.
mhm,
I have a saying that I've coined, that um, no man forgotten and no brother left behind.
mm,
And that's very important to me. Um, I don't want any man to feel like he is alone.
mm,
Um, and then when he does come in, as a he's not forgotten anymore. So he comes into my space and or my circle, into my universe, whatever you want to call it, um, and shows that intent, that willingness to want to be a better man. Then he instantly becomes a brother.
mm,
And when he does that, then he qualifies to not be left behind.
mm.
So that's kind of the meat of my mission, is to bring men in and then to not let them go, because I always want them to feel like somebody has got their back. Um,
And that purpose thing, I think kind of what you're talking about is what Viktor Frankl said, I think, is if a man has a why, he can bear any how.
yeah,
Sort of he can get through things if he has a thing out there into the future that he's looking at and saying,
yeah,
"I can get through this to get to there."
yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing. You see different men that are in different stages of their journey, um, living it different, and just the progression. It's so amazing. Um, but yeah,
Well, Bob, I appreciate you, man. I think what you're doing is important. I
yeah,
think
thank you.
that we don't wanna leave people behind. Obviously, clearly, the topic of men being left behind is near and dear to both of our hearts, and I think people do need role models. They do need resources. Society has changed so much and so fast that a lot of these support systems that used to exist are not there any longer. So I think we need new strategies to cope with that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you too. Thank you for giving me a place to share my story and my passion. Um, again, we need people like you too, to help us, the rest of us, get these messages out. There's so much noise out in the world, social media and whatnot, and um, to have people like you that are facilitating these conversations, outstanding.
Bob, whether it sounds like you're an advocate for any men's group out there, but
Yeah.
obviously you have yours and you have the organizations that you're close to. Maybe where can people find some of those things?
Unfortunately, Men Becoming Better Men right now is only local. It's a physically based local group here in the Metro Detroit area.
Mm,
So if anybody's listening that's in the Metro Detroit area, Metro, I've made it simple now for everybody, whether you're looking for one-on-one or Men Becoming Better Men. It's all men under menbecomingbettermen.com. One
mm,
website, one place to go. Um, I do have a free resource on that website as well we're talking to the divorced men.
mm,
Now I have some relationship stuff on there, a um, a 30-day challenge, or a 30-day divorce challenge on how you can recover from divorce.
mm.
That's really cool. I've had a few men go through that recently. That it's really helped them open their eyes to kind of kind of like we talked about, getting that foundational reset done to get back into that personal growth mindset. Um, and then for relationships, I have a book called The Five Foundations. It's just basically five foundational things about how to better your relationships, like I talked about, going date nights and things like that. Communication, obviously, a huge important thing. But it's a free ebook I have on Men Becoming Better Men. Upper right hand corner, there's a link to it. Um, but yeah, that's where we're at right now. I've got all my old podcasts on there, Men Becoming Better Men. I've got a page for that as well. A lot of episodes. I think we have over 100 episodes. Um, in the whether it's on Spotify or on Apple. Um, just different things, different topics of things that can help men in relationships, whatever the case may be. So a lot of good stuff out of there, a lot of helpful stuff, and all I want to do is not leave another man out there that thinks it's going to be a better solution to putting a gun to his head or something versus kind of manning up and coming into a group, whether it's I know the Mankind Project. Uh, what's the other one? Men's Group is another one that I'm on an email list for. They do some outstanding work. They got a lot of programs and things like that too. There's places all over the country, man. They're popping up everywhere, and it's so good to see, because there's so many of us out there that are like I was. We're just walking around broken into pieces, whether it's through trials of life or trials of divorce or whatever, just to get put back together and be able to walk forward with your head high.
Well, not only are you a resource, but you're a success story. It sounds like you were in the pit, you were in the bottom. Look at you now. You're married, you're helping people, you feel like it's your purpose. So
Living my best life right now, man. I am so grateful and thankful. I owe it all to Jesus, but it's just incredible the things that are happening in my life because of the work that I'm doing.
Bob, I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Alex.
You're doing important stuff, and
Thanks,
keep
brother.
the fight going.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate you.
Yep.